moderating today. We're joined by Senator Kim Pate, Jade Tootoosis, and Dr. Tasha Hubbard. I believe our guests have some opening statements, so I'll let them go ahead.
Thank you very much, and welcome. I'm pleased to see you all here. I want to introduce to you Jade Tootoosis, who's the sister and cousin of Coulten Boushie, as well as Dr. Tasha Hubbard, who's a filmmaker and professor. And as many of you will know, last night we aired Nila Wista Mosowin, which I apologize for any mispronunciation. The inadequacies in Cree are mine, and a world class award-winning film, sadly made about a very tragic situation. So, thank you. Over to you, Jade.
We are here to advocate for tools for significant changes to address the systemic racism embedded in Canada's legal systems. Changes remain unseen in Canada's legal systems following the acquittal of Gerald Stanley and our original visit to Ottawa 2 years ago, February 2018. And we are here again. We are here again to address
that. As some of you may know, but some of you may not, 2 years ago, Gerald Stanley was acquitted in the second-degree murder trial of 22-year-old Colten Boushie, a young Cree man who was asleep in the back of a car that entered Stanley's property and he was asleep until the moment before his death to a shot to the back of the head at close range. The local RCMP detachment issued a press release that put forward a narrative that this was an attempted theft by the people with Colten, rather than an investigation into a murder. Stanley was subsequently acquitted of all charges by an all-white jury. The film, which we screened last night, chronicles the mistreatment by both the RCMP and the Crown and those involved, and is the family's journey toward wanting justice for the death of their loved one.
Our experience is not an isolated event. This is an event and an experience of many other Indigenous families across the nation. My family, we were reached out to when others experience a loss and then have to go through this Canadian legal system to pursue justice on behalf of their loved ones. They reach out with questions, they want support, they need answers as well. It's tough to go on media and see another loss because my heart goes to those families, knowing what they're going to go through, knowing what they're going to experience, and always hoping that it'll be different for them. But that does not seem to be the case because they reach out and they ask, what should we do when we're experiencing these challenges, these barriers, when we're being excluded, when we're not being respected, when we're not being heard, and when we're not being included. What happened to my family continues to happen to other families in this country, and it's unacceptable. 2 years have passed since we've been to Ottawa, and we're back. We're back to follow up with each and every one of those individuals that we met with on the previous time to ask what has been done since then. What has been done since we were here? Commitments were made at that time. It's been 2 years and we haven't been followed up with. So we have to come back here. We have to come back here and ask, what are you doing? Because that's a question that gets asked constantly. My family and I continue to do the work. We continue to speak out and stand up. Because the truth is, we don't have any other choice. We need to do this not only for ourselves, for my late brother, but for those yet to come. We've been working with legal and academic experts from across Canada, as well as in discussion groups with community members and nonprofit organizations in terms of how to move forward. And at this time, we've also returned to Parliament with an award-winning documentary to share with the parliamentarians, so that they not only hear more of our story, but that they actually want to work with us. They should be working with us. If they are servants to the people, they should be working with us.
Unfortunately, Coulten's mother, Debbie Baptiste, was booked on an early flight this morning, but I asked her if she had words to share, and this is what she said. She said, "I'm glad, after some setbacks, that several ministers took the time to listen and were willing to discuss specifics, but now we want results." We'll start to share some of the specific issues that we brought up and the family brought up in those meetings. The family's original request has been for a royal commission to examine systemic racism in Canada. They've requested on several occasions, with meetings with representatives from the government, an invitation to the United Nations Special Rapporteur on Indigenous Issues to come to Canada and investigate those issues. The family also put forward, and this is in consultation with legal experts across the country, to ask where things are with the Law Reform Commission. It's our understanding that it was begun and it has been set aside, and we urged that to move forward. The family has continued to request an inquiry into the Saskatchewan legal system, including the investigation on Coulten's death and the RCMP actions, including their actions on how they informed the family of Coulten's death, the subsequent bail hearing, the preliminary hearing, the jury selection process, the trial itself, and the decision to not appeal. And there has been a petition started on this matter. The family also asked for adequate resources allotted to address the very real problem of hate speech, in particular online hate speech, most often found on mainstream media outlets, your outlets, and social media. This is obviously becoming more apparent in the recent weeks. However, the family has been experiencing this directly for 3.5 years without action by the RCMP. We also asked, they demanded, adequate resources for the government's own anti-racist strategies. Do you want to take the rest, or do you want me to keep track? Okay. The family launched a complaint with the RCMP provincially on their treatment. The RCMP investigated and found themselves to not be in the wrong, at which time the Civilian Review and Complaints Commission announced they were doing an investigation. There's been an announcement that those results were going to come late last year into how the family was treated throughout the process by the RCMP. We have since learned there's been an interim report. The family has not been given that report, and it was confirmed that the RCMP, the subject of the complaint, was given a copy. There were commitments made to ensure the family is informed prior to the public release of that final report.
For a number of questions then. We can go with our first question, I guess, to Brett Forster from APTN. If you want to start us off.
Yeah, I'd just like to ask what was some of the reaction you had from the MPs and the senators and maybe from some of the opposition? What did they say about the film after they saw it?
We had, it's similar to the response we have in audiences that we've had across the country and internationally, and people are moved by the film. We had words of needing to do better, and that came from all the parties. It was a screening that was hosted by the Liberals, by the NDP, by the Conservatives, by the Bloc Québécois, and by Independent Senator Kim Pate. There were representatives from all parties at the screening, and all of them came to speak with us after. And I'm not bad with names. It was a bit of a blur, but one of the MPs said, that this has shifted their thinking, and I think that the reason is the way the case was represented has been without this family's full participation, and the film gives that space for them. So we were disappointed in the empty seats that were in the room. We had hoped for a larger crowd. We do know that there are things that come up in the evening. However, we had hoped to see more people. But the people there, was a very positive response.
We've also put forward that those who were not in attendance, that they follow up with us so that we can provide them with the film and that they watch it with their staff and follow up afterwards as well.
And we've had several commit to do so.
Yeah.
I believe there was a petition circulating as well, asking for an inquiry. What's the status on that?
That petition is online and it just continues to accumulate more signatures. We're nearly 10,000 and growing. So at this time we're calling on a public inquiry looking at basically the justice system of Saskatchewan, as well as a case study looking specifically at my brother's death, at the legal proceedings following that, and then the acquittal. There's much to learn. There's much to learn from our experiences and things that should not be occurring. And so the people stand with my family and continue to sign and call for that action.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Teresa Wright from the Canadian Press.
Hi, you mentioned that there were commitments that were made that you feel have not been kept. Can you talk about what those were and what the status of those commitments are at this point?
When we first came to Ottawa, we understood that these were initial conversations of an ongoing conversation. And following 2 years, there was little to no follow-up from many that we met with at that time. And so that was definitely one of the promises broken in regards to working with my family and keeping communications. So when we came this round, we were definitely met with many apologies with regards to that and further committed to following up with us. And as Tasha mentioned, the specifics to what we met about at this time, only time will tell in terms of the actions following today. We'll see.
When you were having your meetings, or the current ones that you're having, what kind of response are you getting from government officials with regards to the requests that you're making?
I think that there was an agreement that the issues that this family is raising are issues that are experienced by Indigenous people across the country, for the most part. I think sometimes there's a sense that this is one family, speaking to their experience. And we explained to them that, throughout this proceeding, 3.5 years, the film's been out since April. There are many families who reach out who do not have the space or the platform to speak, and that the family is speaking on those other people's experiences as well. That this is a collective experience of Indigenous people when they go through the justice system as victims. And we also spoke about, and we push forward, having a comprehensive multi-departmental effort to put forward a victim services, comprehensive victim services support for families. They looked and found very little support. And we've collaborated with academics, the family, to do something on our own, but that should be a government response to that, and that was met met positively. So, what was the second part of your question?
I just wanted to get a sense of what kind of reception that you're getting from current government officials on the things that you're asking.
Yeah, and I think once we got in the door, they were very open to hearing what the family had to say, and I think there was a lot of expressions of support for the ideas that the family is putting forward. These are ideas that, as Jade said, have been supported and put forward and discussed with many, like she said, legal experts from across the country. And, you know, these are done in the interests of our children. And, you know, my children are in the film, my son and my nephew and others, my nieces and nephews. And, you know, the family from the beginning has said, we're doing the film, you know, because we want things to be better for that next generation. We want things to be better for children who are growing up. And that was the focus of a lot of our discussion.
Okay. Do we have any other questions from the press gallery? I think we have a few minutes. You guys can keep going if you have any more. But yeah, go for it.
This one's for the senators. You know, there's a lot that can be done politically without necessarily an inquiry happening. So I'm just wondering what's going to be happening in the upper chamber to address this issue.
Excuse me. Thank you for that question. I think that what can be done in the Senate is statements can be made. I know in the past I made statements about the Gerald Stanley trial and the tragic fate of Colten Boushie. We can make statements in the chamber, and then we can also ask questions to the representative of the government in the Senate, or in the times when we have ministers, we can actually directly ask the public safety minister, you know, the Indigenous Services Canada minister. So those are the kinds of things that can be done in the Senate.
In addition, you're probably aware I'm already on record as calling for the Law Reform Commission to be reinstated. Last night I was speaking about guaranteed livable income as something that could benefit people who have been victimized as well as many others in the country. And I think part of our responsibility is to breathe life into the role of the Senate to basically provide a forum for discussing issues that aren't getting dealt with in the House of Commons for whatever reason. So, you know, I know that many more than just the two of us are committed to doing that in the Senate. Thank you.
Jade, I was wondering if, you know, a couple of years ago when the verdict came out, then Justin Trudeau was asked about the case, and he said, you know, that we need to do better. Do you think that government has done enough at this point to show that they're committed to that?
We actually met with Prime Minister Trudeau as of yesterday, and we did discuss some of the changes that we may have seen with regards to preemptory challenges. Was one of those things that was initiated afterwards, but that more needs to be done, and the follow-up was lacking. That was lacking, and that just continues to add to the injustice that we experience. And he did apologize and commit to staying in communications with my family as regard to the work that they will be doing. And once again, we'll just have to see what comes of that in time. But definitely, my family, we will be holding him to account to his words.
Okay, are there any further questions? No. All right, then I believe that concludes our press conference for today. Thank you so much to our guests for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.